What's up? I'm Justin and welcome to the Wedding Photographer Guide. Today we're going to be covering 10 tips for photographing your first wedding. And tip number 1, get as much experience as you possibly can before you lead your first wedding. Now, the reason I say this is because photographing a wedding can be so overwhelming. There's so much going on, there's so much to think about, and there's so many photos that you have to get. And if you just go blind into your first wedding, you're definitely going to miss a few things. So if you've never photographed a wedding before and have 0 wedding images for your portfolio, I definitely recommend shadowing a photographer. Ask a photographer in a local Facebook group or a photographer you know if you can just tag along on a wedding and snap a couple photos and offer to give them the photos so that they can use them if they need them to give to the clients or whatever, but get a couple weddings under your belt where you see how the process goes. Once you have a couple weddings under your belt, I recommend getting into second shooting for another photographer. So become the second photographer at that wedding. And you're gonna get to see the whole process and be a part of it and really start to understand what the roles are as a primary shooter and a second shooter at a wedding. The best part about second shooting for weddings is you're getting paid to be educated. You're getting paid to receive education and experience from a photographer who may have been doing this for years. It's invaluable just to get that experience, but on top of it, you're getting paid. There's not many other jobs in the world that will do that. So before you dive in and start leading your first wedding, I recommend you try to get as much experience working with another photographer as possible. Tip number 2. So let's say that we've gone out and we've second shot for a few photographers and we feel confident that we can go out and photograph our own wedding. Awesome. My first tip for you is to make a timeline with your client because every wedding's different. Are they doing a first look? How long is the wedding? Where are they getting ready? I mean, everything is gonna change depending on who your client is. So it's really important for you to know where people are gonna be and when and how much time you have to do photos. For tip number 3, now that you've made your timeline, when it gets to be the wedding date, make multiple hard copies of it. Print them out. I swear this is huge because if you need somebody to go grab family members, you give them your timeline. Say, I need these people. If you're not sure what time you need to be done, you need to check your timeline and find out when the bride and groom need to be at the reception or whatever it is. I use my timeline so that when I'm going through, I cross off or highlight every photo that I get so I know that I've got it covered. And if for some reason we run out of time and we can't get a family photo or something like that, I know I have to go back and revisit that before the end of the wedding. For tip number 4, get a whole lot of these guys. If you're not sure what this is a SD card holder and it is a Pelican case because keep these things safe. Now, I keep a whole bunch in here and the main reason is because I shoot to more than one card on each camera to make sure that if something happens to the card, it gets corrupted or it breaks, that I've got a backup right here ready to go and I know that I'm covered. So make sure that if you have a camera that can shoot to 2 SD cards, that you're shooting to 2 SD cards and make sure you bring enough to cover an entire day of photography. For tip number 5, you're gonna need a lot of these guys too, camera batteries. Now, it's important that you find out just what the battery life is for your specific camera. Each camera battery size is different and they last a different length of time, and it also depends on just how frequently you're gonna be shooting. So that's another reason that second shooting is super helpful so you can get a feel for how long your batteries are gonna last, and that way you know that you're gonna be covered from the start of the wedding to the end of the wedding. My next tip is to bring a tripod with you. Now, if you don't have one, I definitely recommend investing in one. Manfrotto makes some really great, lightweight, and pretty inexpensive tripods that are gonna get the job done really well. And the reason I suggest bringing a tripod is because You never know what's going to happen in a family photo. Now, when I say this, it's because you could have little kids, you could have somebody sneeze, you could have somebody blinking. There's whole many things that could go wrong the more people you add to a photo. When you're shooting and you're in the heart of things, you may not notice that somebody blinked in that photo, or somebody was making a weird face, or somebody wasn't looking. And that's just gonna happen. You know, even if you take 15 shots, you may not get one single perfect photo. So the benefit of having a tripod is you can set your frame and the camera's not going to move. So you can just keep clicking, and then when it gets to after the wedding, you can go ahead, bring those photos into Photoshop and just mask out someone's face to a face where they had a good expression on it. And that makes a okay family photo turn into a fantastic family photo. Tip number 7 is something I try to do with every single wedding if I've not been to their venues before, and that's to go out and scout the locations. You need to have an understanding of what the light's going to look like when you're there, where there are good places to go to take photos. You need to go out and scout if there's places you can go and take bridal party photos or family photos. You just need to have an idea of what you're going to be working with when you get there, because there's nothing worse than getting to a location and then stressing out about not knowing where to take the photos at. Now, tip number 8 is a tough one and can be very uncomfortable starting out, but you need to be a leader. You are gonna be there from pretty much the start of the wedding day through the end of the wedding day, and it's your job to help the bride and groom get through the day. You need to make sure that you're dictating what's gonna happen, who needs to be in the photographs, where people need to stand, what the pose needs to look like. You need to assert yourself as the professional and make sure that they trust your vision and that you're getting things done. But at the same time, tip number 8, you need to be personable and outgoing. You gotta have some fun. This is a wedding day, you know, there's no reason that you gotta be stern and too serious. You wanna make sure your couple's having a good time, the bridal party's having a good time, because ultimately that's gonna lead to referrals and maybe another wedding from somebody else in the bridal party or someone in the family. You never know who's watching while you're working, so make sure that you're leaving a positive impression on everybody at the wedding. And for tip number 10, guys, it's gonna be to stay relaxed and breathe. It's gonna be a very stressful day on your first wedding. There's no doubt about it. There's gonna be so many moving parts, so many things to keep track of. Your head's gonna be in a tizzy, but I promise you, if you just stay relaxed and breathe, you're gonna get through it. Things are gonna go just fine. So don't get worked up if something doesn't go exactly how you planned. Just move on from it and find a way to recover. Thank you guys. That has been 10 tips for photographing your first wedding. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. This is the second video in my wedding photographer guide series. There's going to be lots more great content coming. So if you want to be a better wedding photographer, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and let me know what you thought about this video in the comments. I'm Justin. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.